You might want to click off this video, because deep down, you already know what I'm about to say. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's the kind of truth that lingers quietly, the kind that gnaws at you during sleepless nights. Every man who's ever been overlooked, undervalued, or treated like an auction by a woman he gave his whole heart to knows this moment. That cold, sinking realization that no matter how loyal you were, how present, how much you showed up, she didn't value it. She didn't value you. And that's what cuts deepest. Not the breakup, not the silence, but the echo of everything you gave that went unseen. But here's the twist no one talks about. When a woman doesn't value you, she's not afraid of losing you. Until you disappear from reach. Until you do the one thing that changes everything, not with anger, not with begging, but with quiet detachment. This isn't about revenge. It's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your power. Not loud, not boastful, but the kind of silent strength that forces her to confront exactly what she took for granted. Let's talk about what hurts a woman the most when she realizes too late. She lost the man who finally chose himself. When you stop explaining yourself, she used to argue, twist your words, rewrite history, make you second-guess your own intentions. And you explained, again and again, because you thought love meant being understood, being clear, so you kept defending your actions, your tone, your truth, even when she wasn't listening. But then one day, you didn't. You stopped trying to fix what she'd already decided to misunderstand. You stopped explaining yourself to someone committed to misreading your silence as guilt and your boundaries as ego. That shift, the calm in your voice, the absence of reaction, the quiet withdrawal, it cuts deeper than any argument ever could. Because the man who no longer explains is the man who's already done. And she feels that, not with words, but with the space where your attention used to live. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not bitter, you're aware. And when she throws her usual storm of guilt, and you just let it pass, that silence, that lack of defense, that's when she realizes too late, you weren't the problem. She was just never listening. And now, there's nothing left to hear. When you prioritize peace over her chaos, you used to answer every call, smooth over every conflict, explain yourself in circles just to keep the peace. But peace never came because it wasn't hers to give. She thrived on the tension, on keeping you emotionally off balance, just enough to feel needed. She mistook your presence for permission until something changed. You started choosing yourself. You stopped justifying your calm. You stopped explaining your no. You said, I've got plans. You let her moods pass without absorbing them. You chose silence instead of reacting to her passive-aggressive tests. And that scared her, because the chaos she controlled no longer moved you. You weren't playing the emotional game anymore. You weren't showing up to arguments you never started. You simply chose peace. And not the kind that comes after war, but the kind that makes war irrelevant. That's when it hurt her the most, when she realized your nervous system no longer belonged to her. You weren't trying to win. You were done playing. And now, the one thing she used to stir at will, your energy, is completely out of reach. When you stop competing for her time, you used to check in first. Send the good morning texts. Plan the dates. Like her photos. Try every single time to stay in her orbit. You thought if you just gave enough, she'd see your value. But she didn't. She made you feel like her time was a prize, and you were just lucky to be considered. Until one day, you stopped. You didn't reply right away. You didn't ask where she'd been. You didn't chase her silence with more effort. And that shift, it echoed louder than all your past attention combined. She noticed. Quickly. Because when a man who once gave everything suddenly gives nothing, The contrast is undeniable. She starts to wonder, why isn't he trying anymore? Who has his focus now? Did I lose him? But here's the truth, she didn't lose you that day. She lost you the moment she made you compete for a place you already earned. Now, your absence forces her to measure your silence against all the noise she thought mattered more. And spoiler, it doesn't compare. But you're not doing it for a reaction. You're doing it because you finally realized your time is sacred. Your energy is not up for grabs. And love shouldn't feel like a constant audition. When you stop reacting to mixed signals, she played hot and cold, compliments wrapped in distance, messages that pulled you close, then vanished. And you, like most men who care, kept chasing clarity. You double-texted, asked if something was wrong, tried to decode every sigh, every pause, every silence. Because confusion hurts worse than rejection. And she liked the power. Not because she hated you, but because she liked control. But then one day, you didn't react. You stopped chasing her half-hearted affection. Stopped asking what's wrong. Stopped playing detective in a mystery she never intended to solve. You got still. You got grounded. You smiled and said, "I'm good." And this time, you meant it. And that silence, your calm, confident silence, shook her. Because it meant you saw through the game. And you weren't interested in playing anymore. Suddenly, she was left alone with her ambiguity. No audience. No reaction. No control. And for the first time, she had to wonder what you were thinking. She had to sit in the stillness she used to weaponize and realize it no longer worked. Because nothing stings more than when a man who once chased your confusion chooses his clarity instead. When you start smiling without her plus outgrow. She used to be the reason behind your smiles. Your joy revolved around her replies. You waited for her to notice, to text, to approve. Until something shifted. You stopped orbiting her world and started building your own. Now you're out with friends. You're in the gym, consistent. You're working, laughing, glowing. And the craziest part? You're doing it without needing her in the frame. You post a story not for her, not to provoke, but because you're genuinely alive again. And she sees it. She replays your smile. She rewatches your confidence. And that's when it hits her. You're no longer waiting in her shadow. You're in the sun. And she's not part of the light anymore. That smile? It tells her the truth she fears most. She didn't matter as much as she thought. Not because you didn't love her, but because you learned to love yourself more. She scrolls. She wonders. But you've already moved on, without anger, without noise, without turning back. This is what Stoicism looks like in love. No revenge. No bitterness. Just clarity. She didn't value you when she had you. And now? She doesn't even have access to you. You stayed silent. You stayed calm. And in doing so, you became unforgettable. If this message echoed something deep in you, don't forget to like and subscribe to Fragments of Stoicism. Each week, we share not just philosophy, but the kind of self-respect that changes everything.